Okay, let's try this again. Hey RMNT, welcome to our relationship series. This is part 2 with Pastor Oscar and Mel, and we're going to answer some of your questions that you guys sent in. So, you guys ready?
Super ready.
Okay.
Let's hold hands. Relationship series.
All right, okay. Well, I'm going to hold my hand too. Okay, so first question that got sent in is, how important are boundaries?
Ooh, how important are boundaries? Boundaries, I think, are super important. In any stage of your status, if you want to put it like that. If you're single, if you are dating, or if you're even married, I think boundaries are huge. Why do I say that? It's like, when you think about boundaries, you think about, I think about the earth and the water, right? Like the ocean, and how God put boundaries so that waters wouldn't come into the earth. And I just think you also need boundaries in relationships. You need boundaries when you're dating, so that you don't cross over and you cause a disaster, right? So imagine if the waters would cross over to the earth, it would be detrimental, So I think boundaries are huge when it comes to relationships. What do you think?
Say, like, when you're in a relationship, you need boundaries, physically, spiritually, mentally. You need those boundaries. And even in a marriage,
Yep.
You also need boundaries. You need to make sure that the boundaries you keep within your marriage and like with other people are different. And boundaries are not just about like don't cross limits. It's about respect for yourself and respect for the other person. Until you put a ring on that finger, if you guys end things, well, maybe then you're kissing somebody else's husband or somebody else's wife.
Right.
And so you need to make sure that you are always respectful of the other person.
Yeah.
And you don't know, I don't know if it's too much to like discuss what you guys are comfortable with or what you're not comfortable with, or if you struggle in certain areas. But I think that you have to be very careful, and you shouldn't just be thinking of like, well, I know I can go this far without going too far. You have to think about the other person,
Right.
Because you don't know if they're struggling.
Yeah,
So it's like, you know what? This is a safe place. We can only kiss if we're like on the doorstep, or you know what? I don't feel comfortable kissing at all because I'm afraid that I might go too far. So you know what? Those are things you do have to talk about when you get to a certain point in your relationship.
What would be that point? Like, is it like, can it happen too soon? Can it happen like, is it bad to like wait?
Well, I mean, if you're not ready to bring this person home, then you probably shouldn't be kissing them. So if you're not ready to introduce them to your parents and the rest of your family, then you shouldn't be kissing them.
Yeah.
I think that once you know, like, yeah, like I'm gonna date this person, or yeah, I'm ready to bring them home, then sure, why not?
So to someone that maybe crossed those boundaries and they feel, and maybe they even broke up, what do you say? Like, what's an advice you could give them after this has already had happened?
Okay, well, don't beat yourself up, number
Yeah.
one, because we all make mistakes in all sorts of areas of our lives. We've made mistakes, so you have to pick yourself up and say, okay, next time I'm gonna be better. Maybe you need to write things down. Maybe you're like a very visual person. Maybe you need to write things down and say, okay, you know what? These are my boundaries. Read them, think about them, and then when the next person comes around, you go back to those boundaries and say, okay, these are the boundaries that I set for myself. We're supposed to remain pure and holy, and you want to save yourself for your husband or for your wife.
Right.
So, everybody knows what they can handle, and then sometimes like where your limits are, but you don't want to get to your limits.
Right.
So, just like Oscar was talking about before, land and water. When water does come onto the land, there's usually a disaster that happens. So when boundaries are crossed, situations, problems happen.
Right.
And so I think it's very important to set boundaries.
All right, so a second question that was asked is, if he says, Daddy God, when he prays, do you dump him?
100%.
I agree. Pastor Oscar, any thoughts on that?
No thoughts on that. Just no thoughts on that. Shame on you if you ask that question.
Okay, so third question. Is it important that your family likes your future husband or wife?
Man, okay, I guess I'll go because you're looking at me. So I'll go for it. I think, honestly, I do think it's important. I mean, I remember when I wanted to date Mel. I ended up meeting her parents, right? And when I met the parents, it was like, both her and I used to say something like, man, it actually feels like we fit. Like your family fits with my family and my family fits with your family. And I think it's important, that there's a good chemistry. Because when you're choosing your future spouse, like you're not just choosing them, you're choosing whatever they bring, and that's their family.
Let's go to another question. If he only reads the Message Bible, do you end it?
No, obviously not. Obviously, you wouldn't end it if he only reads the Message Bible. Honestly, if he reads the Bible, that's a good start.
Right.
If he doesn't read the Bible, then
There's a problem.
drop him if he doesn't read the Bible. But listen, if he loves the Message Bible, fantastic. I mean, if he likes the NLT, great. If he's a New King James, wonderful. Whatever translation he likes, that's fine.
For
as
his
long
birthday, buy him a New King James.
as long as he reads the Bible. Yeah. Great question, though.
Right, it is.
Great question.
Okay, so another question that we got was, when being married, what do you do if you can't agree on something?
Whoa. That's a good. Can I go first? I think.
See?
Yes, see. That's wonderful. I don't know if you guys have heard the saying, "Happy wife, happy life." No. But honestly, in honesty, if we don't agree in something, we have to talk about it, right? That's the first thing that we do. One thing that we try to put in practice. We don't always do it because we're not gonna lie in here, camera. But one thing that we always try to do if we don't agree in something, right? What we try to do is kind of like hold hands and talk it through. Really,
Like if you're having a disagreement.
if we're having a disagreement, if we don't agree on something, the reason why we do the touching is because it already puts your guard down. So if we're having a disagreement because we don't agree in a specific subject, I don't know. Usually it's nonsense, to be honest with you. But whatever it is that we don't agree on, what I try to do is we hold hands. It brings us down because you can't be upset when you're holding hands. It's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
See? It's hard. So, I don't even
And
know
if
where
you
I'm-
are, you're just pinching his finger.
So, anyways, keep going. Add to whatever I just said.
No, yeah, I think that there are times where we just the more we keep talking about
Yeah.
things, but we just don't see things the same. And depending on what it is, if it's a decision that we have to make, well, at the end of the day, I trust my husband that he's listening to what the Lord is telling him.
Right.
And so before we make a decision, we pray, we ask the Lord, and then I trust my husband. But if it's like silly things or I don't know, a restaurant or silly things that are not gonna change the course of our life, well, then we agree to disagree.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that you said that because, it's one of those things that people, pastors or even, men don't like to just say, listen, I'm the man of the house or I'm the leader of the home. But I love how you said it. It's like we're equal, but we also, as we're equal individually, at the same time, God has put an order in the way things are supposed to run in a home, and because of that, there is order.
Right.
So when it comes to a disagreement, like she said, about something major, I love that you said, I put my trust in that you're listening to God, that God's speaking to you, and that you're being obedient to whatever He's saying, and therefore we continue leading that way. So I love
And then,
Thank you for that.
And then if once you say that, once a woman tells her husband, well, I trust that you're going to listen to whatever the Lord says, and whatever that is, I'm okay with that decision. Then let's say your husband made the wrong decision. You can't, especially if it affects, people or whatever, you can't throw it back in his face. Because you agreed with him.
Right.
So his decision became your decision. So you can't say, you see, I told you this is all your fault. It's like, well, no, we made the decision together. So we both made a mistake.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why before making a decision, again, especially if it's a life-altering one, you have to make sure that you go to it in prayer, especially when you don't agree. Because sometimes to one of the people in the relationship, it might be like, well, this is the answer and that's it. Like, it's like clear as day, but the other one struggles with it, you know? So that's why it's good to be prayerful, pray together, pray separately, that the Lord gives the other one the wisdom and
And communication is key. You know, I just think that, just to add that, communication.
That's really good. Another question that was pretty popular that got sent in to us is how to date during a pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
pandemic.
Whoa!
We don't have experience.
No experience in that subject whatsoever. That's the question again. That's the question again.
Okay, so how to date
Yes.
during a pandemic.
How to date during a pandemic.
Yes.
I think it's actually kind of ideal because you're forced to like be outdoors, you're forced to talk. You know, like if people go see a movie, you're not talking. If you're going to a restaurant, like sometimes you're like focusing more on the food or whatever. You can be alone in places. So I think I mean, the restaurant part is disappointing, but I think it could kind of be interesting. Like you're forced to be outdoors. You're forced to like talk on the phone or
Can't be out past 8.
FaceTime. You know, nothing good happens after what time?
10 p.m. usually, but in this case, Monsieur
8.
Legault said nothing good happens after 8 p.m. But what we would do, yeah, I think you're totally right. I mean, how do you date during a pandemic? I think the key word is you got to be creative, right? You got to be creative in this season. I think you could actually even be romantic. You know, I know it sounds funny because pandemic, you think evil things or bad things, but it could actually be romantic. Like, you know, for guys to come out, you know, be outside of the box type of thing. And, you know, I've seen clips, I'm sure you've seen clips of like a guy bringing dinner to his girlfriend wrapped in a bubble wrap. You know those huge bubble wrap? Doesn't mean you have to do that. What are they called?
Yeah,
those big balls talking about. But anyways, you don't have to do. But I do think it's an opportunity to be creative.
Right.
That's for sure in this season. I mean, don't eliminate dating online, I guess.
Can I say hi? Hi.
This is what happens after you have a relationship.
We're in a relationship or they're starting to talk to someone. How do you feel about accountability? Like being accountable to someone, you know, when you're in a relationship or when you're getting to know someone and going to someone and being completely like transparent with where you're at and what you're doing in your relationship. How do you feel about that? Like what's something that you would tell someone that's watching?
Yeah, I mean, I think accountability is good. Accountability will work if you heed to the advice that you're getting from the other person. Because I mean, you could, you know, a lot of people say, you know, they throw the word accountability, so they'll be like, all right, I'm gonna be accountable to this person because I'm dating somebody else, and so they come and they say, well, this is where I'm at, this is what's happening, what should I do? Then they hear the advice, but then they go on and do whatever it is that they want to do. So I think when it comes to accountability, I think it's very good. I think why not do it, especially if there are areas in your life where you say, I may be weaker in certain areas. And I think it's good because it keeps you, you know, accountable, right? Like it keeps that other person on you and keeps you alert so that you don't cross any boundaries, I would say at that point.
What does like accountability look like to you though? Like is it someone that you consider a close friend or is it someone that could actually like bring you higher, help you maybe more on a spiritual level?
Yeah.
Whoever you're going to be the most honest with, because you could submit to a pastor and say, okay, I'm going to be accountable to my pastor. But if your pastor asks you a question and then you lie about it, or you're not honest, or you're not telling the full truth, then it defeats the whole purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You need to find somebody that, yes, who is a mature Christian that you can, but somebody that you're going to be honest with.
Right.
That's where the accountability actually happens, is when you're honest, because
Full trust.
yeah.
Full trust. Somebody that you can completely, you know, be open and honest with, so that they're actually able to help you in whatever area.
Yeah.
You know?
And if that is with a pastor, then that's great. right?
If it's a friend,
If it's a
wonderful.
friend,
if it's a
that's
parent,
okay.
sometimes people are very open with their parents, even about certain subjects that parents don't necessarily want to hear. But some daughters and mothers or fathers and sons are able to have those conversations, and why not? Why not?
Yeah. Awesome. That was a good question, guys. Loved it. What are some ways to treasure your spouse?
That's a good question. I think you should.
Okay.
How do you treasure me?
Well, I think that, when you think about your spouse, when you talk about them, when you want to give them a compliment, or when you want to talk about them and appreciate them, make sure that when you do that, you're actually talking about them, not what they do and how it affects you. So for example, I could say, oh, I love that you're so funny because you make me laugh. But I'm saying what he's doing for me. But really I could say, I love the way you laugh. I love your humor. It brightens the day. It brings happiness into a room. I'm talking specifically about him. But when you compliment somebody and you talk about what it does for you, you're really not complimenting them. You're really kind of being selfish and how it's convenient for you. So I think treasuring them, talk about them, tell them what you love about them, tell them what they have that brings something to life, brings life from them. Also when they like something and you know that they like something, you'll make the extra effort to go and do that activity with them. And not just have to okay, well, we're gonna do it now. It's you put effort into it, you enjoy it with them, let them teach you something, enjoy what they wanna do. And I think that that's a way that you can treasure them. Pray for them. Obviously, number one is that you should always be praying for your spouse or praying for the person that you're with, that God would give them favor, that God would give them grace, that God would continue to guide them and direct them.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I mean, I don't think I will, just to add something to it, I think it's gonna help out. It's when it comes to the other person, right? Obviously I want to treasure my spouse. I think about being selfless, So then when it comes to being selfless, I actually heard, I think Jonathan said it like this. He quoted it like this, and I really liked it. So selfless, it actually doesn't mean that you think less of yourself, as in oh, I'm terrible, I'm horrible. But when it comes to treasuring your spouse, it's you're really selfless if you just think of yourself, but think of yourself less than the other person. So then I'm always putting her first. I'm treasuring her, making sure that her needs are met before even my needs are met. And I believe that that's way to be able to treasure your spouse at that point.
That's really good. You guys are taking notes. How do you know if you found the one?
Ooh.
The one.
Have you found the one?
Yes, I have.
So that's it.
I think really the question is, finding the right person, and then they become the one. So you need to make sure that especially when you're a believer and you love the Lord and you're following his path, you're following his directions, and you're going that way, you need to find someone that can come right alongside you and continue going in the same direction. If you meet someone that you have great chemistry, but you guys are going in the opposite direction, they aren't the right one. So it needs to be somebody that you're on the same track with, going in the same direction. And, it may not be the one doesn't mean this is the one person God has for you in the whole wide world, because really everything depends on the decisions that you make, right? So I think that once you've made the decision of who you're going to be with, they become the one. Because God has given us free will. He's not, 100% it happens that God says, I want you to marry this person, but it doesn't always happen that way. And so I think that God, he's instilled his wisdom in us when we ask for it. He's given us gifts and talents and desires. So he says, now go, my child, go and find what you like.
Right.
And then if it aligns with his word, if the person aligns with his word, if the person again aligns with your vision, then you make it work.
I like that, becoming the one, because sometimes, when you have the mentality of like just finding like this is the one, but what happens if the one ends up choosing somebody else?
Right.
Does that mean like you're doomed? Does that mean like, all right, like nobody else is there for me?
Yeah.
You know, and so I think like that's a misconception sometimes that we have. It's like I gotta find the one, but when you look at it as like, you know, this person will become my one, I think that's, you know, that's how I think it has been intended to be. Hey there, listen, I just want to take this time to thank you for taking this time to watch part 1 and part 2 of our relationship series. Hopefully we were able to answer all your questions, but if we didn't, we still have one more session to go, and that's going to happen tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Pastor Jess and I are going to be going live right from here to be able to answer all your questions, or at least as much as possible. If not, happy Valentine's Day. Love you all.